Arts in Writing, and she got her Master's of Arts in Writing from the University of Illinois, Chicago. She is currently credited as an investigative journalist, a consultant, a producer, and a fiction writer. She has not published a full-length fiction novel, but she does have a collection of short stories that has been published. Her journalistic work has been published in over 100 publications globally. She's appeared on TV and radio over 100 times. She is currently Forbes' Vice's editor, and she covers the business of sex. So I looked up what Vices and Forbes is, and it's basically anything that a normal person would consider an addiction. So they cover gambling, they cover the sex industry, they cover marijuana, any sort of oil drug or anything like that. That's what Forbes Vice's section covers, and she is the editor for that section. Some of the publications that she's been published in include The Atlantic, The LA Times, Newsweek, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Some of the TV networks that she's appeared on are CNN, FX, and the UK's Channel 4, which is just one of their networks. She mostly covers sex-related topics, which I thought was really interesting. When I was looking for a media writer to cover, I was just looking for a female writer, and she came up because she had a contest where she was searching for younger female writers, and she was saying, give me your pitch, and if I like it, I'll publish it, and I'll give you $100. I thought it was interesting that she reached out to other younger female writers like this, and when I started looking at her, I saw that she covers mostly sex-related topics, and in her bio on Forbes' website, the first line actually says, I cover the business of sex, which I thought was a little intimidating at first, but then I thought, not a lot of women really cover sex or sex-related things or the adult movie industry, and there's kind of a stigma around that, so I thought, she's clearly breaking that stigma or working to break it, and I thought it was really interesting because she's not gross about it. So she is most known for an investigative journalist piece that she wrote in 2009. It's called They Shoot Porn Stars, Don't They? It's a long-form investigative journalism project on how the Great Recession from 2008 affected the adult movie industry. A lot of people found it really interesting because no one talks about the negative side of the adult movie industry. They always just talk about how taboo and how gross it is and how it's not something that anyone should want to be connected to in any way, but no one really talks about how, the current economic state of the country or the current political state of the country can affect the people who do end up in this industry for whatever reason. She had a blog that she began in 2004 called The Reverse Cowgirl, where she began her trademark topics of more adult geared things such as sex and the adult movie industry. It was named one of the best 25 blogs by Time magazine in 2008. She's currently working on a novel, a non-fiction novel titled Data Baby, My Life as a Human Lab Rat. It's a memoir of how she and over 100 other children were chosen by researchers. They were followed from preschool all the way into adulthood. And the research was basically just to see how different demographics and people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different areas of the country will grow up and how those different settings affect their path in life. It has not been published yet. It was actually only announced in October 2020, but it's actually something that she's been known for a while, so people have been talking about it since she announced it. So the article of hers that I chose to analyze was They Shoot Porn Stars, Don't They? Because like I said, it's one of her more popular pieces. It's something that she's the most known for, and it's really long, and I thought it was really interesting because it does not shy away from the more gory aspects of what goes on in the adult movie industry. So I will be covering the 5 C's to analyze this piece, and I will be starting with colorful. So the thing about Susannah Breslin is that she uses a lot of details to describe what is going on. She personally visited a lot of adult movie sets, and she personally interviewed a lot of actors and producers in the industry, and she describes everything. She goes down to what the weather was like, the furniture, what the people looked like, what they were wearing. As you can see here, she says, the man and I are sitting on a dingy beige sectional sofa. That's a lot of detail, and it helps the audience and the reader sort of picture what's going on as she's writing it. Yes. So the next C is concise. She varies between long and short paragraphs. This is really important because if you just have a whole page that's one paragraph, it is really hard and really boring to read that. So she does really good. She does really well when it comes to her variation. One thing that I did notice is that she does kind of, she tends to have much longer sentences, and she doesn't really break up her sentence structure. But I think it helps because of the fact that she'll have a short paragraph that's only 3 lines. It's one sentence, but it's 3 lines. And then she has a whole longer paragraph, and then she has a one-line paragraph. So the next C is connectivity. It's really hard to connect the average everyday person to someone who works in the adult movie industry, but she does a really good job of trying to connect the audience to every person that she interviews, because she'll mention, how they grew up, where they went to college, what they wanted to do before they ended up in the adult movie industry. And so that sort of connects the audience to these people, because it just shows them that they're not just like trashy nobodies who ended up in porn. They are actual people who had actual roles in actual life at some point. So you can see where in this first screenshot, she mentions that one of the, I think he was a filmmaker for one of the camera guy for one of the movies. She says, where he went to school, what his major was, how he joined a fraternity. That's something that a lot of people do, and it really connects the reader to the story. She also connects past issues to what is currently going on in her article. So she mentions the 1973 case of Marvin and Miller versus the state of California. And she also mentioned, so her article takes place in 2009. She mentioned when Bush first took office, I think his first term was in 2000. And she mentioned how Bush taking office was going to have a large effect on the adult movie industry, because he was saying a lot of stuff about wanting to crack down on more promiscuous media. The next C is correct. So the thing about Susannah Breslin is that in all of her pieces, she does not rely on second or third party. Everything that she gets is a first-person resource. She will interview you herself. She will go to the set or whatever the location is herself. They Shoot Porn Stars 2 was actually like, on the website, I think it's 10 or so pages. And in every single new setting, she says, I walked in there and I saw this, this, and this. And when you see all the more recent articles, she says, I interviewed this person. She doesn't say, oh, this person was interviewed in this other magazine. I pulled their quote from there. If you want more info, you can go to that website. She personally goes to every single source, which means that everything she gets is a first-hand account, which makes it more likely to be correct. Because if you pull something from a secondary source, it reduces the chances of something being an actual fact. So she does a really good job of that. The next C is clear. She is very detail-oriented. She's very easy to read. She's very casual. And even though she does have some long sentences, she does a good job of not making it super pedantic. So she won't say something that is full of like big, huge words that look like they've been pulled out of a thesaurus. Like she'll have a long sentence, but it's a long sentence, it's still easy to read because it's words that are used in everyday language. She also uses chronological storytelling, especially for They Shoot Porn Stars too. She goes straight from the beginning all the way to the end. She pulls in different time areas or timelines, and she'll drop them into the story. But for the most part, she goes from point A to point Z in chronological order, which makes it a lot easier to read and to keep track of. So I think that makes her stuff really clear. This is her Twitter presence. She hasn't published any of her own written work since August of 2020 because that was when she took up the Vices section at Forbes. So on Twitter, she doesn't really retweet a lot of her own work. She tends to just retweet other people's articles. So you can see here, she retweeted a review of the Nobody movie. And then here she retweeted narrative persona in nonfiction. So even if it's like, whether it's something about entertaining media or something about more educational media, she tends to kind of cover all her bases. She's also currently selling a lot of her old books on Twitter if anyone is interested in that. So some of my takeaways are that she's very open to taboo topics. Her last published article on Forbes was about sex dolls, which is not something that a lot of people want to talk about. And it's usually thought of as the kind of work that is given to, the last person to raise their hand because nobody wants it. But she'll volunteer for that stuff. She hasn't let stigma keep her from moving forward in her career. In fact, she embraced the stigma of a woman covering taboo topics, and she let that take her all the way to becoming the editor of a pretty interesting section at Forbes, which is one of the largest business magazines in the world, and I think that's pretty interesting. She's also shown me that it is very easy to get caught up in one kind of topic and to kind of get typecasted in a way. She started by writing about sex and sex-related topics, and now she's kind of buttonholed herself into that because now that's all really anyone seeks her for is these taboo topics. So I think it's interesting that she embraced that, but also a little bit of a warning that if that's not the only thing you're interested in, don't let yourself get caught up in it because it's very easy to get caught up in it.